The massive space station Kepler Prime hung in the darkness between stars like a glowing city, made of metal and glass. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports, bringing delegates from species that had never seen each other before today. The station buzzed with activity, as beings of different shapes and sizes moved through its corridors, all heading toward the same destination. The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest room on Kepler Prime. Its walls curved upward into a dome that showed the stars outside, making everyone inside feel like they were floating in space itself. Hundreds of seats filled the hall, each one designed for a different type of alien body. Some seats held water for the fish-like hydrians. Others glowed with special light for the crystal beings called Vortani. And many were built extra strong for the heavy rock people known as Granite Lords. Ambassador Kellera swam in her water-filled chair near the front of the hall. Her blue skin shimmered as she moved her fins, and her large black eyes watched the other delegates with interest. She had traveled far from her ocean world to be here today, and she knew this meeting would change everything. Across the hall, Representative Zixith stood perfectly still in his seat. His body looked like living crystal, clear as glass but strong as diamond. Light moved through him in slow waves, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like music made of breaking glass. He had been chosen by his people to speak for them because he was the oldest and wisest of all Vortani. Near the back, hive mind node Kixtal sat with his 6 legs folded under him. His insect body was covered in hard black shell, and his compound eyes could see in all directions at once. Unlike the other delegates who spoke for themselves, Kixtal was connected to billions of other Kithera through their shared mind. When he made decisions, he made them for his entire species. The meeting began when a deep voice filled the hall. General Vordak of the Altarian Empire stood at the center podium, his tall body covered in golden scales that caught the light. His people were warriors who had conquered many worlds, and he carried himself like someone used to being obeyed. "Fellow delegates," General Vordak said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "We gather today to discuss a problem that has puzzled the galaxy for 200 years. The humans," a murmur went through the crowd. Every species in the galaxy knew about humans, but none understood them. They had appeared in space 2 centuries ago, spreading quickly through their solar system and building impressive cities and ships. Then, without warning, they had closed their borders and refused to let anyone enter their space. For 200 years, we have respected their wishes. General Vordak continued. We have honored their request for isolation, but the time for patience has ended. We need to know what they are hiding. Representative Zixith rose from his seat, light pulsing through his crystal body. The humans have sent the same message for 2 centuries, he said in his musical voice. They warn all ships to stay away. They claim it is for our own safety, but what could be so dangerous that they must hide it from the entire galaxy? Ambassador Kellera's fins fluttered as she spoke from her water chair. My people have tried to contact them many times. We have offered trade, friendship, even military alliance. They always refuse. They say they cannot leave their space and we cannot enter it. What kind of prison have they built for themselves? The delegates began talking among themselves, their voices mixing into a buzz of different languages and sounds. Some species clicked, others hummed, and a few made sounds like grinding stone. But they all agreed on one thing: the humans were hiding something important. Hive mind node Kixtal spoke in the voice of billions. The Kithera Collective has observed human space with our best sensors. We detect normal ship traffic, normal energy signatures, normal communications. Yet no probe we send across their border ever returns. No ship that enters their space is ever seen again. This is not normal defensive technology. General Vordak nodded his scaled head. Exactly. If they had powerful weapons, we would detect them. If they had strong shields, our scanners would see the energy patterns. Instead, we see nothing unusual until the moment our ships cross their border. Then they simply vanish. Dr. Sindal, a small Vortani scientist, projected a hologram above the center of the hall. The image showed the edge of human space with red lines marking where ships had disappeared. I have studied every lost probe and ship for 50 years, she said. There is no debris, no energy signature, no distress signal. They do not explode or get destroyed. They cease to exist. The hall fell silent as delegates stared at the hologram. The red lines formed a perfect sphere around human space, marking a boundary that no non-human ship had ever crossed and returned. Perhaps Gear, said Elder Morgeth of the Granite Lords, his voice rumbling like an earthquake. The humans have found technology beyond our understanding. Perhaps they have learned to manipulate space itself. Or perhaps, Ambassador Kelra added, they are protecting something so dangerous that they dare not let it escape. Representative Zixth pulsed with brighter light. There's only one way to learn the truth. We must send a fleet large enough to overcome whatever defenses they have. We must demand answers, General Vordak smiled, showing teeth like golden daggers. I propose we assemble the largest investigation fleet in galactic history. 500 ships from 12 species, armed with our best weapons and shields. The humans cannot hide from all of us. The vote was quick and unanimous. Every species agreed to send ships. The Altarians would provide warships. The Vortani would bring their best sensors. The Hydrians would send their fastest scouts. And the Kythera would contribute their bioships that could adapt to any situation. As the delegates prepared to leave, Ambassador Kelra swam close to Representative Zixith. Do you think we are making a mistake? She asked quietly. The crystal being considered her question, light moving slowly through his body. The humans have had 200 years to prepare for this day. If they truly wanted to hide something from us, they would not have made their borders so obvious. Perhaps they want us to investigate. Perhaps they are waiting for us. Far away in a secret base hidden on Earth's moon, Admiral Lisa Carter received a priority message from her deep space sensors. She read the report twice, then activated her secure communication system. All stations, this is Admiral Carter, she said calmly. The Galactic Council has made their decision. They are coming to investigate. Prepare for visitors. Alert all defense crews and activate Protocol 7. After 200 years, they are finally going to learn why we warned them to stay away. In his quarters aboard the defense ship UHS Guardian, Captain Jake Morrison felt his stomach tighten as he heard the Admiral's message. He had trained his entire life for this moment, but he still hoped it would never come. The aliens thought they were investigating a mystery, but they were actually walking into the greatest tragedy in galactic history. Soon they would understand why no species enters human space. Soon, they would learn what humanity had sacrificed to keep the galaxy safe. And soon they would realize that some secrets are kept not to protect the secret keeper, but to protect everyone else. The galactic fleet moved through space like a swarm of metal insects. 500 ships from 12 different worlds all heading toward the same destination. General Vordak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Altarian dreadnought Golden Spear, watching the edge of human space grow larger on his screens. Behind him, his officers worked at their stations, their golden scales gleaming under the bridge lights. Distance to human border, General Vordak asked his navigation officer. 2 million kilometers in closing, General, came the reply. All ships report ready for investigation procedures. The general nodded and opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. All vessels, this is General Vordak. We are approaching the boundary of human space. Remember, we are here to investigate, not to attack, but be prepared for anything. Across the fleet, different species prepared in their own ways. On the Vortani science ship Crystal Mind, Representative Zixth stood in the sensor chamber, his crystal body pulsing with soft light as he connected to the ship's scanning systems. The Vortani could link their minds directly to their technology, making them the best sensor operators in the galaxy. All systems active, Zixith reported to his crew. I am detecting normal human activity, mining operations around their outer planets, cargo ships moving between stations, communication signals at standard frequencies. Nothing appears unusual. On the Hydrian scout vessel Deep Current, Ambassador Kelra floated in her command pool, watching the tactical displays with her large black eyes. Her ship was built for speed and stealth, designed to slip through enemy defenses and gather information. Sensors show no weapons platforms, no shield generators, no military installations at the border, she reported to her crew. If the humans have defenses, they are very well hidden. The Kythera bioship Living Swarm pulsed with organic light as hive-mind node Kixtal connected to billions of his kind across the galaxy. Through their shared consciousness, the entire Kythera species watched as the fleet approached human space. The collective sees no threat, Kixtal announced to his bridge crew. Human space appears defenseless. On his flagship, General Vordak studied the reports from his allies with growing confidence. 200 years of mystery were about to end, and he would be the one to solve it. Prepare the first probe, he ordered. Send Captain Zilnith forward in his scout ship. Let us see what happens when someone actually tries to cross their border. Captain Zilneth was young for a Vortani, his crystal body still bright and clear without the clouding that came with age. He had volunteered for this mission because he wanted to be remembered as the first being to enter human space in 2 centuries. His ship, the small scout vessel Bright Edge, separated from the main fleet and accelerated toward the invisible line that marked the beginning of human territory. "This is Bright Edge to Fleet Command," Zilneth transmitted as he approached the border. "All systems normal, no sign of human interference. Crossing the boundary in 10 seconds. Far away on the human defense ship UHS Guardian, Lieutenant Amy Foster watched her sensor screens with growing tension. She was young for her position, but Admiral Carter had chosen her personally for this assignment because of her quick thinking and steady nerves. Now, as she watched the alien scout ship approach the border of human space, she felt her heart beating faster. "Contact crossing the perimeter in 5 seconds, she reported to her captain. "Should I activate the warning systems?" Captain Jake Morrison stood behind her, his face grim. He had hoped the aliens would turn back when they saw the empty space at the border, but he knew that was just wishful thinking. "Negative, Lieutenant. Let them cross. They need to see for themselves." On the Bright Edge, Captain Zilneth felt a moment of excitement as his ship crossed the invisible line into human space. For exactly 3 seconds, nothing happened. His sensors showed normal space, normal stars, normal physics. Then something impossible began to occur. "Fleet Command, this is Bright Edge," Zilneth transmitted, his voice showing the first hint of confusion. "I am detecting massive gravitational anomalies. The space around my ship is behaving strangely. Gravity is pulling in directions that should not exist." On the Golden Spear, General Vordak leaned forward in his command chair. "Clarify that report, Captain. What do you mean the space is behaving strangely?" "General, I do not know how to explain this." Zilneth's voice came through the speakers, now clearly worried. "My ship's computer says I am in normal space, but my instruments detect gravitational fields that fold back on themselves. Space is folding around me like paper being crumpled. I do not understand how this is possible." Representative Zixth connected his consciousness directly to the fleet's sensor array, trying to get a better reading on what was happening to the scout ship. What he found made his crystal body pulse with alarm. "General Vordak," he called out across the communication channel. "The scout ship is still visible on our sensors, but the space around it is exhibiting properties that violate known physics. It appears to be existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously." "That is impossible," General Vordak snapped. "Nothing can exist in multiple dimensions at once." "I agree it should be impossible," Zixith replied. "But our sensors do not lie." Captain Zilneth's final transmission came through filled with panic. "Fleet Command, something is very wrong here. The stars are in the wrong positions. My navigation computer cannot determine my location. The space around me is folding, twisting, and I cannot control my ship. How is this happening? How can space itself be?" The transmission cut off abruptly. On every sensor screen in the Galactic Fleet, the Bright Edge simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, not hidden behind some kind of shield. It ceased to exist as if it had never been there at all. The command bridge of the Golden Spear fell silent. General Vordak stared at the empty space where the scout ship had been just moments before. "Sensor report," he demanded. "Where is the Bright Edge?" "Unknown, General," his sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. "All traces of the ship have disappeared from our instruments. No debris, no energy signature, no distress beacon. It is as if the ship never existed." Ambassador Kellera's voice came through the fleet communication system, her usual calm replaced by worry. "General, my deep sensors detected something just before the ship vanished. For just an instant, I read energy patterns that do not match any known technology. It was as if reality itself rejected the presence of our ship." On the UHS Guardian, Lieutenant Amy Foster turned to Captain Morrison with wide eyes. "Sir, the alien scout ship has been processed by the perimeter defenses. No trace remains." Captain Morrison activated his secure communication channel to Admiral Carter on Luna Base. "Admiral, the first probe has crossed the boundary. The aliens have seen what happens, but they do not understand it. They think we are using some kind of advanced technology." Admiral Carter's voice came back immediately. "Understood, Captain. Monitor the fleet's response. If they send more ships, do not interfere. They need to learn that our warnings were not threats, but attempts to protect them." General Vordak's pride would not let him accept defeat from the loss of one ship. "All squadron leaders prepare your vessels," he commanded. "We will send a full squadron of 12 ships across the border. Whatever technology the humans are using, it cannot affect multiple targets simultaneously." War Captain Tikzal of the Cathera spoke up from his bioship. "General, perhaps we should reconsider. The scout ship did not encounter weapons or shields. It encountered something that defies our understanding of physics itself." "Nonsense," General Vordak replied angrily. "The humans are using some kind of illusion or trick to make us afraid. No species in the galaxy has technology advanced enough to make ships simply vanish. We will prove that their defenses can be overcome." The squadron formed up at the border of human space. 12 ships from different species, each one confident in their advanced technology and strong defenses. They had weapons that could crack planets, shields that could stop stars, and sensors that could detect a grain of sand from 1,000,000 kilometers away. "Squadron advance," General Vordak ordered. "Cross the border together and maintain constant communication with the fleet." The 12 ships accelerated toward the invisible line that marked the beginning of human territory. Their crews were the best in the galaxy, veterans of countless battles and explorations. They had no fear of human technology, no matter how advanced it might be. One by one, they crossed the border into human space. One by one, they began transmitting confused reports about impossible physics and folding space. And one by one, their transmissions cut off as they vanished from every sensor in the galactic fleet. In the silence that followed, General Vordak finally began to understand that they were not facing human technology at all. They were facing something far more terrifying than any weapon ever built. The Golden Spear's bridge fell into complete silence as the last of the 12 ships vanished from their sensors. General Vordak stood frozen at his command post, his golden scales dulled with shock. In his long military career, he had never seen anything like this. Ships did not simply stop existing. "General," his communications officer called out, his voice barely above a whisper, "we are receiving a transmission from human space. It is being broadcast on all frequencies." "Put it through," General Vordak ordered, his voice rough with confusion and growing fear. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human woman in a simple blue uniform. She appeared to be in her 40s, with short brown hair and calm eyes that seemed to hold depths of knowledge that made the general uncomfortable. Behind her, the bridge of her ship looked surprisingly normal, with standard displays and control stations that any spacefaring species would recognize. "I am Dr. Karen Lewis of the Terran Defense Force," the woman said, her voice clear and steady. "I am humanity's chief xenobiologist, and I have studied your species for many years. I know that you have just lost 13 ships crossing our border, and I know that you do not understand what happened to them." Representative Zixith's crystal body pulsed with agitated light patterns. "Where are our ships?" he demanded. "What weapons did you use against them?" Dr. Lewis shook her head slowly. "We did not use weapons, Representative Zixith. We tried to warn you. For 200 years, we have broadcast the same message to anyone who approaches our space. Turn back, you do not understand what you are approaching. Those were not threats. They were attempts to protect you." "Protect us from what?" Ambassador Kellera asked from her water-filled command chair. "What could be so dangerous that you must hide it from the entire galaxy?" The human woman's expression grew sad, as if she carried a great burden that she could barely discuss. "What you encountered when your ships crossed our border was not a weapon. It was not a defense system. It was protection, but not protection from you. Protection for you." General Vordak's anger flared hot and bright. "Explain yourself, human. Stop speaking in riddles. What happened to our ships?" "Your ships encountered the edge of our reality," Dr. Lewis replied calmly. "The space within our solar system no longer follows the same physical laws as the rest of the galaxy. When your vessels crossed that boundary, they entered a region where their molecular structure could not remain stable. They were not destroyed. They were unmade." The alien delegates exchanged confused glances across their various communication channels. Hive mind node Kickstal spoke for billions of his kind when he said, "That is impossible. Physical laws are universal. They cannot be different in one location than another." Dr. Lewis nodded as if she had expected this response. "You are correct. Under normal circumstances, physical laws are universal. But our circumstances are no longer normal. 200 years ago, we were forced to make a choice that changed the fundamental nature of space within our solar system." "What choice?" Representative Zixith asked, his crystal form flickering between different colors as he processed the implications of what the human was saying. That information is classified at the highest levels, Dr. Lewis replied. What I can tell you is that we altered the quantum structure of space itself within our territory. This alteration makes it impossible for unmodified biological matter to exist here safely. Your ships and crews could not survive the transition. General Vordak's military mind struggled to accept what he was hearing. If what you say is true, then how do you survive in this altered space? Are you claiming that humans are no longer biological? For the first time, Dr. Lewis hesitated before answering. We adapted. The process was necessary for our survival and for the protection of the galaxy. But it came at a cost. We can no longer leave our space safely, just as you cannot enter it. The communication channel erupted as multiple alien species tried to speak at once. The concept that an entire species could voluntarily alter their own biology was beyond anything they had encountered before. Even the Kithera, who used biotechnology extensively, had never imagined anything like this. You are lying, General Vordak declared. No species would willingly trap themselves in their own territory. You are using advanced technology to create illusions and make us afraid. Dr. Lewis's expression hardened. General, I understand your skepticism. Your military background makes it difficult for you to accept that a species would choose isolation over expansion. But consider this. If we possessed technology advanced enough to make your ships simply vanish, why would we limit ourselves to our own solar system? Why would we not use such weapons to conquer the galaxy? The question hung in the air, and General Vordak found he had no good answer. A species with technology that could unmake matter itself would indeed be capable of conquering every world in the galaxy. The fact that humans remained isolated suggested either incredible restraint or some other factor that the aliens did not understand. On the UHS Guardian, Captain Jake Morrison received an urgent message from Admiral Carter. Jake, the aliens are preparing to test our defenses with their most powerful weapons. They still believe we are using some kind of advanced technology, rather than the truth. Prepare for a massive assault. Captain Morrison activated his ship's defense systems, but he knew that conventional weapons would be useless against what was coming. The aliens were about to learn that human space was protected by forces far beyond anything they could imagine. General Vordak's frustration boiled over into action. All ships, prepare for maximum weapons deployment, he commanded. We will test the limits of this supposed altered space. Ready the quantum phase torpedoes, nova cannon, and biomechanical planet crackers. If the humans want to hide behind impossible physics, we will show them what real technology can accomplish. The Vortani deployed their quantum phase torpedoes, weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and could theoretically strike targets that were protected by any known defense. The Altarians charged their nova cannon, a weapon designed to crack open moon-sized asteroids with a single shot. The Kithera released their biomechanical planet crackers, living weapons that could adapt to any target and consume it from within. Fire all weapons. General Vordak ordered. The space around the galactic fleet lit up with energy as dozens of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy discharged simultaneously. Beams of pure energy, quantum torpedoes, and biomechanical constructs all streaked toward the boundary of human space at incredible speed. Every single weapon vanished the moment it crossed the invisible line that marked the edge of human territory. The quantum torpedoes, which should have been able to exist in multiple dimensions, simply ceased to be. The nova cannon beam, which carried enough energy to vaporize a small planet, disappeared without a trace. The biomechanical planet crackers, which could adapt to any environment, were unmade before they could even begin their adaptive processes. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in his career, General Vordak felt genuine fear. He was not facing advanced technology or superior weapons. He was facing something that operated outside the laws of physics themselves. Dr. Lewis, Ambassador Kellera called out across the communication channel, her voice shaking. Please, we need to understand. What force could possibly require such drastic measures? What could be so dangerous that an entire species would voluntarily become prisoners in their own space? Dr. Lewis looked directly into the camera, and for a moment, her calm facade cracked. Behind her professional composure, the aliens could see something that chilled them to their cores. Fear, not fear of them, but fear of something else. something that made even this altered human woman, who existed in impossible space, deeply afraid. "There are things in the universe that should not exist," she said quietly. "Things that hunger for more than just matter and energy. 200 years ago, one of those things found Earth. We stopped it, but the cost was everything we were. Now we stand guard to make sure it never escapes to threaten the rest of you." General Vordak felt his certainty crumble completely. "You mean there is something in your space? Something alive? Something that makes our voluntary imprisonment seem like a small price to pay?" Dr. Lewis replied. "And if you continue to test our defenses, you may weaken the barriers that keep it contained. I strongly suggest you withdraw your fleet before you accidentally release something that could consume your entire sector of the galaxy." The communication ended, leaving the galactic fleet alone with the terrible implications of what they had just learned. The galactic fleet hung motionless in space, its commanders paralyzed by the implications of Dr. Lewis's words. General Vordak paced his bridge like a caged animal, his golden scales dim with confusion and growing dread. Everything he had believed about military power and galactic politics had been shattered in the span of a few hours. "General," his tactical officer called out hesitantly, "the fleet commanders are requesting orders. Do we withdraw or attempt another approach?" Before General Vordak could answer, Ambassador Kellera's voice came through the communication system. "I volunteer to go," she said simply. "Someone needs to learn the truth, and diplomatic immunity might protect me where military force has failed." "Absolutely not," General Vordak snapped. "I will not lose another ship to whatever madness the humans have created. You have already lost 13 ships. General," Representative Zixith pointed out, his crystal body pulsing with concerned light patterns, "and all of our weapons have proven useless. Perhaps it is time to try a different approach." Hive Mind Node Kickstal spoke with the voice of billions. "The collective agrees with Ambassador Kellera. Military solutions have failed. Diplomatic contact may succeed where force cannot." Admiral Lisa Carter's voice suddenly filled the communication channel, broadcast from somewhere deep within human space. "We will accept one representative for direct contact, but I must warn you that what this representative learns may be difficult to share with others. Some knowledge carries a burden that changes those who possess it." Ambassador Kellera's fins fluttered with determination. "I accept the risks, Admiral Carter. My people have always believed that understanding is worth any price." Hours later, Kellera's small diplomatic shuttle approached the boundary of human space. Her ship was unarmed and carried only basic life support systems designed to keep her alive in the water-filled cockpit. As she neared the invisible line where so many ships had vanished, her hearts beat rapidly in her chest. "This is Ambassador Kellera requesting permission to enter human space," she transmitted. "Permission granted, Ambassador," came the reply from Captain Jake Morrison aboard the UHS Revelation. "I will meet you at the boundary coordinates. But I must warn you one final time. What you are about to see will change your understanding of everything." As Kellera's shuttle crossed the boundary, she expected to feel the same reality-warping effects that had destroyed the other ships. Instead, her vessel seemed to be surrounded by a shimmering field of energy that protected her from whatever forces existed in this altered space. The UHS Revelation appeared on her sensors, a sleek human vessel that looked remarkably normal despite existing in impossible space. Captain Morrison's voice guided her to a docking port, and soon she found herself swimming through a water-filled corridor that had been specially prepared for her arrival. The meeting room was unlike anything Kellera had ever seen. The walls seemed to shift and flow, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes becoming transparent to reveal stars that were in the wrong positions. Reality itself felt unstable here, as if the very concept of existence was negotiable rather than absolute. Captain Morrison entered the room, and Kellera's shock was immediate and profound. He looked human, but something was fundamentally wrong with his appearance. His body seemed to exist in multiple places at once, shifting slightly as she watched. When he moved, she could see ghost images of where he had been and where he was going, as if time itself was uncertain around him. "I know my appearance is disturbing," Captain Morrison said gently. "This is what we became when we adapted to survive in altered space. We exist partially outside normal time and space now. It was the only way to fight what threatened us." Admiral Carter's hologram materialized in the center of the room, and she appeared even more changed than the captain. Her image flickered between different quantum states, sometimes solid, sometimes translucent. occasionally seeming to be in several places simultaneously. "Ambassador Kelra," Admiral Carter said, her voice seeming to come from multiple directions at once. "Thank you for accepting our invitation. What I am about to tell you is the truth that we have hidden from the galaxy for 200 years. 2 centuries ago, Earth was invaded by something that should not exist in our reality. The hologram changed to show Earth as it had been before the invasion. Cities sprawled across continents, ships moved between planets, and humanity appeared to be a normal spacefaring species. Then the image changed, showing something that made Kelra's mind struggle to process what she was seeing. "We call it the Devourer," Admiral Carter continued. "It exists in 11 dimensions simultaneously and feeds on the fundamental forces that hold reality together. It does not just consume matter and energy, it consumes the laws of physics themselves." The hologram showed the entity as a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to bend space around it. Wherever it touched, stars went out and planets simply ceased to exist. But this was not destruction in any conventional sense. The Devourer was unmaking the very concept of existence itself. When it reached Earth, "We tried conventional weapons," Captain Morrison explained, his multiple quantum states making his voice sound like several people speaking in perfect harmony. "Nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, even experimental temporal disruptors. Nothing worked because the Devourer exists outside the physical laws that make such weapons possible." Commander Pete Williams materialized in the room, his form even more altered than the others. His body seemed to be made of living equations, mathematical formulas that shaped themselves into human form. "So we did something desperate," he said. "We volunteered to undergo quantum evolution." Kelra's translator struggled with the concept. "I do not understand. What is quantum evolution?" "We altered our own cellular structure to exist partially outside normal space-time," Dr. Karen Lewis explained as her hologram joined the group. "By changing ourselves at the quantum level, we gained the ability to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality within our territory. It was the only way to fight something that existed in 11 dimensions." The display showed the transformation of humanity. One by one, humans had volunteered to undergo the process that would forever change them. Their bodies became quantum constructs existing in multiple states simultaneously. They gained the power to alter reality itself, but they lost the ability to exist in normal space. "The process worked," Admiral Carter said sadly. "We were able to contain the Devourer within our solar system. But the cost was everything we had been. We can no longer reproduce naturally. We can no longer leave our altered space. We can no longer interact safely with unmodified biological matter." Kelra felt horror wash over her as she finally understood. "You mean every human alive underwent this transformation?" "Every human who survived," Captain Morrison confirmed. 7 billion people volunteered to give up their humanity to save the galaxy from something that would have consumed every star, every planet, every living thing. We became living weapons designed to fight an enemy that exists outside reality itself." The truth hit Kelra like a physical blow. Humanity had not become isolationist out of arrogance or fear. They had voluntarily transformed themselves into quantum guardians, sacrificing their very existence to protect species they had never met from a threat those species could not even comprehend. "The Devourer is still here," Dr. Lewis added quietly, "contained within our space, held in check by our constant vigilance. Every day, every hour, every minute, we maintain the quantum barriers that keep it from breaking free. If we ever fail, if we ever let our guard down, it will escape and begin consuming the galaxy one star at a time." Kelra understood now why no species could enter human space. Their quantum-altered biology would be fatal to any normal life form, just as normal matter was incompatible with their transformed existence. Humanity had become prisoners in their own solar system, eternal guardians watching over a cosmic horror that could unmake reality itself. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you make such a sacrifice for species you had never met?" Admiral Carter's quantum form smiled sadly. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because someone had to stand guard. Because the alternative was watching the galaxy die star by star until nothing remained but empty darkness." For the first time in her diplomatic career, Ambassador Kelra found herself with no words to express what she was feeling. She was witnessing the greatest act of sacrifice in galactic history, and the species that had made it could never be thanked or honored because they could never again interact safely with those they had saved. Ambassador Kelra returned to the Galactic Fleet changed by what she had witnessed. Her small shuttle docked with the Golden Spear, and as she swam through the corridors toward the main briefing room, she carried knowledge that felt like a physical weight in her chest. The other delegates were waiting for her, their faces showing mixtures of curiosity, fear, and desperate hope for answers. "Well," General Vordak demanded as soon as she entered the room, "what did you find? What are the humans hiding?" Kelra floated in her water-filled chair, struggling to find words that could convey the magnitude of what she had learned. "They are not hiding anything from us," she said slowly. "They are hiding something for us. The humans have made the greatest sacrifice in galactic history and we never knew." She told them everything. About the devourer that existed in 11 dimensions, about humanity's voluntary transformation into quantum beings, about their eternal vigil to keep a cosmic horror contained within their space. As she spoke, the room grew quieter and quieter until the only sound was the gentle hum of life support systems. Representative Sixth's crystal body flickered through rapid color changes as he processed the information. "This is impossible to accept," he said finally. "No species would voluntarily give up their biological existence. No government could convince an entire population to undergo such transformation." "They did not need to convince anyone," Kelra replied sadly. "When the devourer began consuming Earth's reality, 7 billion humans volunteered. Every adult, every child old enough to understand, every elder who could still speak. They chose to become something else rather than let the galaxy die." Hive mind node Kixtal spoke for his billions of connected minds. "The collective finds this account disturbing but logical. If such an entity existed, conventional solutions would indeed be inadequate. But surely some humans must have refused the transformation. Those who could not undergo the process were evacuated to deep space colonies," Kelra explained. "But within months they began to die. The quantum alterations that saved the transformed humans made it impossible for them to exist near normal humans. The colonies failed and the last unaltered humans perished. The transformed ones were truly alone." General Vordak's military mind rebelled against the story. "I do not believe it," he declared. "This is an elaborate deception designed to make us retreat. No species sacrifices itself for others, especially not for species they have never met." "Then explain our vanished ships," Ambassador Kelra challenged. "Explain weapons that simply cease to exist when they cross their border. Explain how they can make space itself reject our presence." Before General Vordak could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the Golden Spear. The ship's sensors had detected something impossible. Dr. Sindal, the Vortani physicist, rushed to her instruments with growing panic in her movements. "General," she called out, her voice tight with fear, "I am detecting massive dimensional distortions throughout this sector. Space itself is becoming unstable. Reality is beginning to fracture." On her screens, the stars were moving in ways that violated every law of physics. Some grew larger while simultaneously growing smaller. Others began existing in multiple locations at once. The fabric of space-time was developing tiers that showed glimpses of impossible geometries that hurt to look at. "It is breaking free," Kelra whispered, understanding immediately what was happening. "Our presence here has weakened the barriers. The devourer is trying to escape." Colonel Mary Johnson's voice suddenly filled the communication channels, broadcast from somewhere deep within human space. Her quantum-altered form appeared on the main screen, flickering between different states of existence. "All alien vessels, this is Colonel Johnson of the Terran Defense Force. Your continued presence near our border is destabilizing our containment systems. The entity we have spent 2 centuries holding prisoner is attempting to break free." As if summoned by her words, something vast and hungry stirred in the quantum depths between dimensions. The alien crews could feel its presence pressing against the edges of their consciousness, a mind so alien and malevolent that even brief contact with it induced madness. Several bridge officers across the fleet began screaming as their minds touched something that should not exist. "Evacuate this sector immediately," Colonel Johnson continued, her voice remaining calm despite the cosmic horror awakening around them. "If the containment fails completely, this entity will consume your entire region of space before we can re-establish the barriers." General Vordak watched his sensor displays show impossible readings. Space was folding in on itself. Time was flowing backward in some areas while accelerating wildly in others. Stars were being unmade not by destruction but by the removal of the fundamental forces that allowed them to exist. All ships, he commanded, his pride finally overcome by the reality of what they faced. Begin immediate withdrawal from this sector. Maximum speed. But even as the galactic fleet began to retreat, some commanders refused to accept what they were seeing. Captain Zorvan of the Altarian heavy cruiser Iron Fist broke formation and accelerated toward human space. "This is obviously human technology designed to frighten us," he transmitted. "I will prove that their so-called cosmic horror is nothing but advanced holographic projection." "Captain Zorvan, return to formation immediately," General Vordak ordered. "That is a direct command." "I reject your authority, General," Zorvan replied. "I will not be frightened by human tricks." The Iron Fist crossed the boundary into human space, and immediately the dimensional distortions intensified. Reality began to unravel faster as the Devourer sensed weakness in the quantum barriers that had held it for 2 centuries. Captain Jake Morrison's voice came through the communication system, urgent and desperate. "All human units, prepare for emergency containment procedures. The barriers are failing. Activate Protocol 9 immediately." Throughout human space, the transformed humans began to glow with quantum energy. They were pouring their very existence into the containment systems, using their altered biology as fuel to repair the damage caused by the alien presence. One by one, human settlements went dark as their inhabitants sacrificed themselves to maintain the barriers. Admiral Carter's final transmission to the Galactic fleet was transmitted even as her own quantum form began to dissolve into pure energy. "This is why we warned you to stay away. This is why no species enters human space. We are not your enemies. We are your guardians, and we are dying to keep you safe." The Iron Fist was consumed not by weapons but by reality itself rejecting its presence. Captain Zorvan's final scream was cut short as his ship was unmade at the molecular level, but his death weakened the barriers further, and something vast and hungry pushed against the quantum prison that held it. For a terrifying moment, the Devourer almost broke free. The alien crews felt its attention turned toward them, a mind of infinite hunger that wanted to consume not just their bodies but the very concept of their existence. Then the remaining humans made their final sacrifice. Every transformed human in the solar system gave up their individual existence to become part of the containment system itself. They became living equations that rewrote the laws of physics around the Devourer, sealing it away once more. But in doing so, they ceased to be people and became something else entirely. The dimensional distortions stopped, space returned to normal, the stars resumed their proper positions. But human space had gone completely silent. No communications, no ship movements, no signs of life at all. General Vordak led the retreat of the Galactic fleet, his mind reeling from what he had witnessed. As they reached safe distance from human space, he opened a communication channel to all ships. "Let this be recorded in the archives of every species," he said solemnly. "We came here believing we would find enemies or conquerors. Instead, we found guardians. The humans have sacrificed everything they were to protect us from something we could never have fought ourselves." Ambassador Kelra floated in her chair, tears mixing with the water that surrounded her. "They warned us for 200 years to stay away. Not because they hated us, but because they loved us enough to guard us from the dark." Representative Zixith's crystal form pulsed with soft, respectful light. "We must establish a memorial at the boundary of their space. Future generations must know what humanity gave up for our survival." The Galactic Council voted unanimously to create a permanent monument at the edge of human space. Ships from every member species contributed materials, and the greatest artists in the galaxy worked together to create a memorial that would last for millions of years. The inscription, written in every known language, read simply, "Here stands the boundary of human space. Beyond this line, the transformed guardians of humanity maintain eternal watch over forces that would unmake the galaxy. They chose isolation so that we might know freedom. They chose transformation so that we might remain ourselves. They chose sacrifice so that we might live. Let no ship cross this boundary not from fear, but from respect for the greatest heroes the galaxy has ever known." And in the silent depths of human space, something that had once been Admiral Carter continued the eternal watch. No longer human, but still driven by the love that had made their sacrifice possible, the Devourer slumbered in its quantum prezo,